Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and LFE. We are recording this on June 28th of 2016. And summer's finally here in the great western side of Washington State. It's been a gorgeous the last few days here. We got our 80 degrees and a nice breeze and
blue sky.
Blue sky, yeah. Actually, I haven't noticed any chemtrails at all. Have you?
No, not really. I noticed a couple in the morning yesterday, but
yeah, that's kind of refreshing. We got good old the bluest skies you ever seen are in Seattle, right? No, it's gorgeous up here right now, and I've been having fun with my new hobby of flying RC airplanes, and actually crashed one really good this weekend, which is always fun.
Crashed it and lost it.
Yeah, crashed. I lost it for a day. I mean, I had to go back the next day with my little drone my camera drone, flew it way up in the sky to spot it from the air. It's so hard to find. Anyways, found it. It's a big pile of garbage. But anyways, it's a fun hobby. I'll have to post some pictures of some of my planes on the website.
Yeah, speaking of pictures, I think it was last weekend. I was driving in chemtrails, right? And there's a bunch of chemtrails in the sky, a bunch of chemtrails, and it looked like they were coming out of the top of this big hill peak, right? So I turned the camera on my phone and I stuck it out the sunroof, and I started snapping pictures. And I took a handful of pictures and put my phone away and kept on going. And then I got home and I was looking at them, and one picture just happened to have 3 or 4 different signs in it, and one of the signs was a yield sign. 2 of the signs were people crossing sign, and then in the background was the big American flag.
Oh, there you go.
And then in the background of all that was this, all these chemtrails coming out of that looked like they were coming out of the top of this big hill. So it just all lined up.
Advertisement for chemtrails.
Yeah. Stop spraying, America. Yield.
Oh man,
there's people crossing.
Here's your sign, right?
Yeah.
Here's your sign. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. I just drew a blank. I was going to say something.
Oh.
Anyways, you guys know we're on a donation basis here, so we are been doing the show for 8 years now. And you guys are what keeps the lights on, and we still thoroughly enjoy doing this show and bringing all these great guests to you and the wonderful information that we put out there. And I know that we've touched a lot of you, and a lot of you have touched us. So much gratitude and thanks to all of you guys out there who are donating and helping us keep the lights on. So Elfie and I are going to ECETI this weekend. We're going to go to the conference over there at James Gilliland's place at Mount Adams, and we've been there a few times, and it's always a great time sitting out there and conversing with all the people. That's the greatest part of going to those things is the people that go to it.
And time's going by so fast, but this last week has just been dragging.
I thought you said it was going to fly, because it's been flying by for me.
Yeah, well, all the way up until the last week it has been.
Well, that's because I'm one of those why do now what you can put off till later. At least for those chores that are mowing the lawn and getting the motorhome ready, and all those fun things. So, anyways. Oh, we ought to get on with the show. Our guest is hanging there going, geez, when are these guys going to bring me in?
Yeah. It's going to be exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we got a great show for you guys. This guy, Tolec, we have on with us tonight. He contacted us here a few weeks ago, and, in light of all of the shows that we've been doing here in the last few months, trying to dig into the extraterrestrial and alien card, and puzzle that piece into our mosaic of life here, and how does that tie into our personal growth and our collective growth? So Tolec is a human representative of the Andromeda Council, an intergalactic, interstellar, and interdimensional governance and development body of aligned benevolent star systems and planets of sentient intelligent life for worlds both in the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxies. He's been given the name Tolec as an Earth-based public persona name by the 5 people with whom he regularly communicates, who are stationed on the primary Andromeda Council biosphere. There are presently 12 Andromeda Council biospheres stationed in the solar system, and 3 of them are relatively close to Earth. We're going to bring Tolec in and get to know this guy. He's actually got some pretty interesting material out there on the internet, and I've come across him quite a few times in my research days and poking around on the internet. So, welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio, Tolec.
Yay!
Tom, it's great to be here. Hello, Fee. Nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you.
And
nice to meet you.
when you guys get over to Mount Adams, say hi to James for me. He's great. He's just a great guy.
We'll do that.
We spent some time together at Rob Potter's Mount Shasta conference last summer, and I had never met James in person before, and it was like meeting a brother I hadn't seen in a few years.
Right. Yeah, family, soul family.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's good people.
So Tolec, we want to know a little bit about who Tolec is. I know we've got a lot of listeners out there, and I'm pretty sure that we've got a bunch that have never come across you. So who is Tolec, and where are you from, man?
Wow. Okay. Well, I haven't told like the begats story in a long time. I'm in my age-wise mid to late 50s. I was raised in New England. Let's see. I spent about 17 years in the healthcare software industry, and then about 12 years in literally in international banking. Just for those people who start to go cringe. I worked for the Central Bank of the Blackfeet Indian Nation, and I was their operations guy. I was chief operating officer. So I made sure that the bank and its management team abided by not only international banking laws, but also U.S. banking laws and all the KYC, BSA,
right.
all of the regulations. I was basically their inside regulatory guy, and when things smelled fishy, I killed them. Killed them, and we said, "Sorry, guys, we're not doing this one." We just kind of pushed it to the side.
Right.
In September of 2010. I was contacted again by a man whom I know to be the commander of the primary Andromeda Council biosphere. I know who he is today, and I learned of his status in September of 2010 when he contacted me again, and I had a whole bunch of questions because...
So how did he contact you? Was this did he give you a phone call or knock on the door?
It was telepathy. It was no different than the three of us having this conversation, except I wasn't using a phone. We weren't doing it via Skype. There was no headset. I could hear him speak in my mind.
Okay.
Very, very simply, telepathy is being able to communicate with somebody else instead of using a phone technology, simply from my mind to your mind. And interestingly enough, what I was hearing was American Standard English. You know, he was communicating with me in the same language that I speak. And these guys...
So it wasn't... I mean, I know a lot of the telepathy that I've personally experienced have been, a lot of images, emotions, pictures, that sort of thing. You get a whole big chunk, right? A big download, right?
Yeah, there's all of that. There's subtle vibrations. There's coarse vibrations. There's quick images, like if somebody was flipping through a photo book, I get fast images. And from the beginning, I got all of that, as well as actually my ability to hear him speak. And so it began hours and hours of conversations, and he told me about and went through the details of this experience that I had with him back in 1993. And the whole story is pretty much the following. I'm living in what's considered to be northwest Tucson. I'm about 14 miles outside of town, up against the Catalina Mountains. And it was about 20:04 in the morning, a.m., it's either late August or late September, one of the two, of 93.
Is this while you were banking?
I was still in the healthcare software industry then.
Okay.
Yep, still in healthcare software. I had moved to Tucson the winter of 91, so I was still relatively new there. And so I'm deep in sleep, and I hear this gentleman's voice, very much like we were just describing telepathy. I'm hearing this gentleman's voice in my mind, and he basically wakes me up. He's like, "Hey, come on, you got to go." I'm like, "Excuse me?" Strangely enough, I recognized his voice. It was kind of like, I think all of us have an Uncle Bob or an Uncle Frank.
Right, yeah.
Because it was like, "Oh, yeah, it's Uncle Bob." So he said, "I know it's early in the morning, but you got to get dressed, and you got to hit the highway. You got to get on I-10 and go down to the mission, San Javier." I'm like, "Okay, why am I doing this?" He said, "Because you're going to come meet me." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm like,
yeah.
In the bathroom, throw some clothes on. I had traded in what was then a contemporary Nissan Maxima, and I'm in the desert, so I traded in this black leather Nissan Maxima for a used, beat-up Ford Bronco 2, so I could actually go kind of off-road and not have any issues. So I had hopped in a Bronco and drove about 20 minutes down 10, and then I think it's like the first I-19 exit, either just before or just after, and he said, "Pull off into the very first dirt road after the exit, and it's the first dirt road that you'll see that'll go into the desert." I'm like, "Okay." So I did, and I traveled just beyond about a third of a mile, and it's pretty flat out there. There are a couple of dips from washes and stuff, but it's relatively flat. But I went through this one little wash, and as I came up the other side of the wash, and for those of your listeners in Washington State, a wash is a riverbed that typically has no water in it. And we of the desert, we only get water in our washes when it rains like crazy.
Right.
Okay.
Hey, one point of clarification.
Sure.
This was this memory? This was a memory that had been blocked from you, and you're being retrieving this in 2010.
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha.
And as he and I were discussing that specific memory, a lot of other things came flooding back as well. It was like that memory was the trigger for a whole bunch of other things.
Right.
Which I had a whole bucket of other questions. So I came up through the other side of this wash, and I pop up on over in my little Bronco, and I'm like, "Holy crap!" There's this ship. Think of the prototypical like Billy Meyer Pleiadian silver, 35 to 40 feet in diameter craft. That's kind of what it looked like. And there's this dude in a one-piece jumpsuit, and it actually had the Andromeda Council emblem that you see on the website. It had the emblem on his left front shoulder, just under the shoulder, but on the chest, but far upper chest area. And he's got long dark hair. And I see him and I see the ship. I'm probably 65, 70 feet away. I hop out of the Bronco. I'm waving at him. "Hey, it's good to see you again. Good to see you." I'm like, "Why do I know this guy?" And so he starts gesturing over. He's like, "Come on. You got to go. I need you to come over here." I'm like, "Hey, it's good to see you." And he's like, "Will you please hurry up?" He's like, it's now like 4:20, 4:25, something like that, and it's late summer, and the sun is about to come up. He's like, I don't want the people that are going to be driving north into Tucson to go to work to see us, specifically my ship. I'm like, "Oh, okay." Shut the door on the Bronco, lock the thing up, run over. I don't remember any hug, but he basically puts his arm on my shoulder, and he said, "Hey, listen, we are going to be traveling back in time to the area of West Virginia, Western Kentucky." I don't exactly remember which state it was, but I knew based on where we arrived, where we were. He said, "But we're going to travel to the middle Atlantic states of your country back in the 1840s. whoa, okay. And he gave me this little, like a gel, like a NyQuil gel cap. And he said, you need to swallow this pill. And I said, okay, why?
Was it the red pill or the blue pill?
Blue. It was a blue pill. Actually, blue-green. And that story, this story actually, that metaphor actually applies to the story. So I swallow the pill. Now, keep in mind, I'm pretty blown away by all these things I'm experiencing. So he may have had me walk through some kind of energy attenuating device. I don't specifically remember, but what I do remember is him telling me, he said, you see me because I've manifested a 3D organic body. He said, typically, I look like this, but I'm usually a mid-level fourth dimensional person, and you wouldn't see me in that form, so I created this body so you could see me. But I'm telling you, you can't make this trip as a three-dimensional organic person. No organic person can travel through time, either forward or backward. You have to have a higher frequency. You have to be at least...
Yeah, you can't take your body with you.
No. And if you do, somebody's got to use some kind of technology to raise your frequency so that it's a higher vibratory rate consistent with the fourth dimension. So between the pill and whatever else he did, I became a fourth dimensional human for that trip. I remember leaving Earth, seeing Earth and the Arizona desert fall away from me, and then coming into Earth space, seeing the moon, and that's about the only movement that I felt. And I'm able to address these things because some people asked this question recently. I'm like, well, yeah, there was some movement getting off the planet's surface, but once we got out of Earth space, basically, he had done whatever he needed to set the controls, and so that he basically created a Stargate, Einstein-Rosen bridge. He created a wormhole. It's like, boop, boop. We pop in, we pop out. That part took seconds. I think the whole trip from departing Tucson and arriving in western Kentucky, West Virginia, took like 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen those being created in the sky.
Yeah, and we arrived in the 1840s. So family, mom, dad. He's like in his mid to early 30s. She's in her late 20s. They've got a son that's 9 or 10 years old, brown hair. The daughter is a cute little thing, blonde hair, like sky blue eyes. She's like 3 or 4 years old. And we come popping in. We travel a little bit, and we're kind of in the sky. We're hovering over their homestead. They've got a home with the porch and the railing. They've got a barn. They've got animals. They've got hay. They've got a cornfield. They're growing their vegetables. They got animals. And so I took the same trip 3 times over the course of about a week and a half. The first one I just described to you, and 2 additional trips. And interestingly enough, the pill story applies prior to re-entering Earth space, where the gravitational pull of the sun affects Earth, which creates its gravity. He gave me the pill to turn me from higher dimensional, fourth dimensional person back into 3D organic. Oh. So I went through that process 3 times. First time out and back, second time out and back, and interestingly enough, third time out and back.
All of them back to the 1840s, same place?
Yeah, same place. And I'm telling the story in a different sequence.
What type of time frame between the 2 in that era? I mean, so was it January, then February, then?
No. I would call it whatever their version of late spring or summer was, or it could have even been like late summer, early fall. I did not remember seeing any change of leaf color at all.
I guess the question I'm asking was the time between their time frame synchronous to your experience of time here? Did you understand what I'm saying there? So if it was 2 weeks between your trips, was it 2 weeks between their trips, between their time?
Go ahead and ask that question again differently.
Okay. So
please.
Between your first trip and your second trip, say it was a week, or how long between those two trips?
Okay. There were 3 trips over a total of about 11 or 12 days.
Okay,
and
so then
I think we were synced. I would think we were synced up in terms of first trip, let's call it late summer. The second trip, late summer. Third trip, late summer. It was the same every time I arrived. I was still within a contextual similarity.
2 days passed for you, 2 days.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, but having said that, all he would have to do is, he'd go to his controls and go 1446 or 1624.
Right. No, I understand. I was just curious if you were looking at a passage of time with each different,
Yeah. I honestly don't know how many days had passed for that family.
Okay.
In between our trips, I really don't know. During the third trip, somehow, don't know how it started, but there was a barn fire, and the little girl had been in the barn playing with the animals when I think it was like a baby lamb or a baby goat, and she died of smoke inhalation before the fire actually got to her. But she died. The whole barn went up. They lost a lot of animals. Anything having to do with the barn was a total loss, and it was a very difficult experience for me to watch, to observe, and I don't know if I'd call myself empathic, but certainly borderline. I've always been someone who has a high level of emotional and energetic sensitivity and awareness of other people. It was difficult for me to watch that whole experience within the context of that family losing their daughter, especially for the father.
Of course.
You know how that works. And so I turned to this gentleman. I said, out of all the experiences that you could have shown me in what is my first, big time, and I think it was like, 32 or 33 at the time, something like that. What was my first big time contact experience? And he said, well, first of all, you ought to know that genetically, this family has a physical connection to you and you to them. I said, okay. He said, but more importantly, you on this planet, the collective you of planet Earth, your planet is about to begin an era of significant change. And there are going to be a lot of changes happening on your world. And because we're fourth dimensional humans, and I'm going to now use like a visual metaphor, we as Earth humans, our scale of emotional depth and breadth, say, goes from 0 to 50. Again, I'm using a visual metaphor. And it's almost like a sine wave. We have these big dips and peaks and lows, right? For the most part, higher dimensional humans, simply because they're more evolved, they're still on an evolutionary path, but they're just more evolved than we are. Their range of emotional experience is like 15 to 35. They just don't, if you will, feel with the depth that we do.
Right.
That's A. B, because they're fourth dimensional human, and they are essentially, I've used these words before in different combinations, but I'll try it this way. They are essentially, literally, of the spirit realm. Anything from 4D up are the spiritual dimensions, the literal dimensions that are made of what I call fine essence, energy, matter, higher vibrational energy. There are a number of terms for it, but consequently, they don't live an organic life. They don't live and die like we do. They don't go through the emotional trauma that we do when people that we love and care about die, pass on. And consequently, through observing me with this experience, now keep in mind, they can't interfere. They can choose this experience or any other one to observe me or observe anybody else, but they can't interfere in the process of this family's life. At least they are bound by their code of ethics that they can't interfere. And so he basically said, I and we want to better understand you as a human, as a representative of the human race, and formally as a representative of the human race, because there are going to be a lot of things happening, both naturally, cosmically, man-produced, human-produced, that will radically change life as you know it on this planet. And if we're going to help you, and we have plans to help you in the future, we've got to do a better job of understanding who you are and what moves you, what motivates you. I went, okay, that makes sense. And the last trip, he said, by the way, I'm going to give you a choice. You can stay here at this vibratory rate and be what we on Earth would call a spirit guide. You can be a guide, a mentor, a teacher for these people as their lives, they've just had this event, as their lives move forward. You can stay and help them if you'd like to. Or you can come back to Earth with me and continue your Earth life. And so here I am. I guess I chose to come back. And I probably, at that moment, there was so many things were activating inside of me. I probably at some level knew there were going to be some significant things happening in my own life, and I wanted to give myself the opportunity to have those experiences. But that's some total of like the trigger event that led to the creation of the Andromeda Council website in the first week of May 2010.
Right. So in 2010, had you were you still working in the banking industry, or had you retired, or
no? Interestingly enough, in April of 2011, I was the chief operating officer for an asset management firm, a global alternative asset management firm, and they had been in startup mode, if you will, for like 8 or 9 years. And the investor, the investor group that had been funding this operation basically said, we have put as much money into this operation as we're going to. You got to make it on your own. And I had only been hired by that particular firm a couple years earlier, and so I was one of the first people that they let go. And interestingly enough, that was like April of 2011. So all of a sudden, I had this free time.
Right.
And with that, I'm like, I had this experience in September of 10. I really need to do something about it. And so I sat in front of my computer. I looked at 3 or 4 different website development companies and packages, and I happened to pick Homestead as the platform. And I wrote the first iteration of the Andromeda Council website. It was five very short pages, but the second page is pretty consistent from what it was at the very beginning. It names all 12 senior members of the Andromeda Council. It names the Federation as sort of their day-to-day management company. And so that we can get into the details of this, but essentially, so that people understand, the Andromeda Council, what we know as the Andromeda Council on this planet, in deep space is known as the Galactic Council. And thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, the originating body was a council which originated in Arcturus. And they're known to be sort of like wise, old, loving sages. They're just very, very wise, very, very loving. And they had like 9 people, nine star systems organized as this deep space governance and development body. And the best words I can think of to describe that is, just think of a deep space United Nations. That's the best comparison I can give for people. And the Galactic Federation is sort of like their day-to-day management company. They have all the ships. They receive the protocols, the guidelines, the directives to facilitate actual day-to-day cooperation between the planets, cooperation between the star systems, interplanetary trade, exchange of resources, products, cultural, music, art, educational programs, all that stuff. The Galactic Federation handles that stuff on a day-to-day basis. And this Deep Space UN, called the Andromeda Council, they create guidelines and protocols for accepting new star systems and new senior planets, and what those guidelines are to be, reviewing a particular system to find out if they are essentially spiritually awake and aware enough.
Right. So within the Galactic Federation, is there you have the Andromeda Council? Are there other councils? Or is that a council among many, or?
Yes, actually, the Galactic Federation itself is based in the Tau Ceti star system, and they have 140 star systems. Sorry, star systems, and approximately 300, plus or minus 5%, 300 planets that it coordinates trade and culture and education and everything else. And most of those take on advisory board seats or subcommittee seats.
So a majority of those Milky Way are, and I'm curious how the Andromeda, the Andromeda and the Milky Way galaxy, are they that closely knit together as far as, I know once we get up past the crude third dimensional plane, things are much more mutable, but are we collectively more closer knit than what it appears in the physical?
Well, I'm not sure this answer is going to answer your question, but I can tell you that there are a few, and only a few, worlds like us, 3D worlds. And Earth is unique for a number of reasons, but for the sake of this conversation, there are only a few third-dimensional planets which are, organic. We have skin, we have muscle, bones, tissue, blood. The mountains are made of hard rock. The materials are all slow and dense. There are only a few of those planets that are part of the Council. The greatest majority of Council membership is made up from worlds that go from 4D, fourth dimensional, in terms of a vibratory rate, all the way up to at least 9D. And the Arcturian people are from 9D.
Right.
And I have a really good sense and a really good handle on what life is like through the fifth. Beyond the fifth, I'm not able to tell you. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not one of those people who says, "Oh yes, I was off planet and I was one with all of the universe and the Creator and the creation." I haven't done that. I haven't had that experience. But I can tell you a lot about what happens through 5D.
Right.
So and the summary is, most of the worlds that are members of this council are somewhere between 4D and 9D, with the bulk of them being 5 through 6, 7.
Right.
And on the different Andromeda Council biospheres, including the primary one, which is sort of like the big UN building, there are different levels, different floors, if you will, dedicated to different vibratory rates. So the different ambassadors from each star system can come, stay, visit, work.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. There's a lot. I've been there a number of times. It's always busy there.
Yeah.
Always.
So with these 4D and 5D worlds that are out there, let's say we had the technology with the telescopes to where we could actually view their planet from here, would we just see like a Mars kind of planet where we don't see anything really on the surface, just rock and dirt and remnants of water, or
you raise a good point. It's my understanding that even in our solar system, there are, I think, at least 3 of the planets, already have higher dimensional life living on those planets, or down inside the planets. And again, we're talking about, if you were able to see somebody who's a higher dimensional human, you may see a form, and you may see some what would look like, I don't know, kind of like transparent molecules.
An orb.
Yeah, but yes, thank you. Many times, when people are seeing beautiful, multicolored, all the colors of the rainbow, sparkling orbs that are like the size of a plum or a baseball or a softball or a cantaloupe, and they're green or they're red, probably blue, purple. Very typically, these are beings from another world that have collectively said, hey, you want to go to Earth? Yeah, sure. I want to go check out some people in Washington or in the Mount Shasta area. There's some really neat energy. So, Pete and Phil and Sam and Joe and Amy and Susan, they all get together and go, come on, we're going to take this trip. And so they collectively they create, and these are fifth-dimensional people. Typically 4D people do not do this, but from mid-level 5D and up, they can combine their energies and go down to Earth and just float around and observe. And that's many times when people see orbs, that's what they're seeing.
Yeah. So when they do that, does time and space doesn't matter then, right?
Does not. No. From the fourth dimension up, time has absolutely no relevance. For a fourth dimensional being, fifth, whatever, it's more like. I know it's a visual metaphor, but it's the best I can do. It's more like if you were to look down into a swimming pool, you would see water and what would seem to be a random set of events. You got one, like, now I'm going to use a clock face reference. You got 1 at 11, one at 5, 1 at 3, 7, 4, 5, 6, 9, 2, they're all what look to be random events. Well, that's kind of like how they live in the higher dimensions. They just experience stuff. They're just experiencing the things in their lives. Whereas when we experience organic life on Earth, even if we had lifetimes that would be 200 to 300 years, it's linear. Today's
Right.
Monday, and then Tuesday, and then Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday. I mean, it's part of what we experience as 3D life on this planet. Now I'll give you a reference point. This is a great experience and story I love telling, and it is definitive in its explanation of how different higher dimensional people, and I haven't invented a word yet to replace time, so you're going to hear me say it, but I hesitate when I use it, how they experience life. And here's how it came about. I was having a conversation with this gentleman who's the commander of the primary Andromeda Council biosphere about 2 years ago. And I said, I've been going about this all the wrong way. And I said, I have the sense that I've been a student of this topic called time for many, many lifetimes. And I can see him nodding his head. He's like, yeah, you have. It's been exhausting. I'm like, okay, well, bear with me here. I said, the problem has been that in all of those other lifetimes, I've never been to the level of knowledge and awareness that I have today. So I'm going to put my hat on backwards. And I'm going to ask the question differently. And I could almost see his eyebrows go, he's catching on,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm formulating the question, and the question comes out this way. I said, all of the other times I know categorically that I've asked the question from my perspective. Now I'm going to ask the question from your perspective. He's like, okay. I said, you tell me that in between my intermittent stays on the Andromeda Council biosphere, where I do work on a few different subcommittees, that I've been coming down to this planet many times, like for 75,000 years. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Given that I've been coming to this planet as we measure Earth time for about 75,000 years, and I've been incarnating and living all these different lives, he's like, yes. From your perspective, using Earth terms, how long does it feel like I've been gone? Again, from your perspective, but using Earth terminology. And his answer was, like about a 1.5 business trip. My words, but that's essentially what he said. He said, about a 1.5 years.
So
What?
so a year and a half his time, 75,000 years Earth time.
Yes, yes. And so if you take that to the next logical step, that would mean that 100,000 years of Earth time would be about, again, it's the wrong word, but would be about 2 years of their time. Now,
their sense of time.
It's only an approximation to be able to, for me to be able to tell the story about how different they experience life. I was blown away when I learned that information. I was just like, what? My head was like, I almost could not grasp that. It took me like a week and a half or 2 weeks just to settle down from that knowledge.
Right.
And they, and I'm going to use Earth terms, let's say, because when I first met him, he was he was 4.5, 4.7 of a fourth dimensional person. They will experience what we would calculate to be as 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 years as a 4D person. Or maybe 5,000. And then, he or she would wake up one day and go, I think I've learned as much in this realm as I really can. I'm ready for new lessons. I'm ready for new experiences at the next dimensional level. And he and or his partner would say, come with me. Yeah, sure, we'll do this together. And they just make a decision to do it.
Right.
And that next moment, after they've decided to do it, if you could see them as 4D people, they would essentially disappear.
Right.
And they're vibrating at a faster rate. They'd be vibrating faster than your eyes would be able to see them, but they would now be vibrating as a fifth dimensional person. And then they would live another 6 or 7 or 8,000 years and say, I think I'm going to become a 6D person now.
So would it be that quick though, or would it be? I mean, the way we're experiencing it here is we make these little soirees into the next dimension. We do start by meditation, and then there's it's other people. It's different for everybody, but you understand what I'm saying. We do a lot of little trips into those other realms.
Absolutely.
To customize ourselves, and then before we shed the mortal coil, right?
Yeah, but more interesting than that, and I've just learned this within the past year and a quarter or something like that. We are actually, and here we go with my pizza analogy again, but it's a good one. Imagine I'll just call him Tom's oversoul. The greatest possible entity of who you are. For lack of a better word, I'll call it an oversoul. And you are, it's my metaphor, but here we go. You are like a 24-piece extra large pizza. And there's like about a slice and a third that's animating this Tom body here on Earth. And even though you're only using like about a slice and a third of the totality of your essence, that slice and a third is still like 3 times as big as your human body. We've got this spirit essence stuffed into this little human body. That's the first thing you ought to know. The second thing that I think it's important to know is that there are different, and therefore there's like another 23 plus pieces of pizza that are out there in the universe having different life experiences simultaneously.
Gotcha.
Which is almost incomprehensible. Because
it definitely.
A lot of us have a hard enough time getting out of our own way here on this planet in one body.
Right. Yeah. So, Tolec, you're working as kind of a liaison between the Andromeda Council and us, humanity, and I'm just curious. That sounds like a really challenging position to get your point across and have people actually believe what you're saying without having some kind of proof. The skeptics out there, they like to have something tangible in some way, shape, or form, or see it vetted in some way, shape, or form that brings a little higher level of credibility to the material that's being shared. What tools have you been given by the Andromeda Council, or that you've, however, whatever form they take, do you have to,
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
I understand the question you're trying to ask. Yeah. I used to, I say this jokingly, but as a kid, now I'm talking about 5 years ago when I first started this process, I used to bristle a little bit at that question. And now, it's contextual. I understand.
It's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Right.
The best, and honestly, the best answer that I can give is the following. Over the past 5 years, and the number probably exceeds 50 or 60 at least, occurrences whereby any one of my Andromeda Council contact people, whether it's this guy who's the commander, or Vice Chairwoman Tanya, who's the Vice Chairwoman of the Council, or Ambassador Tanka, or Diplomat Maka, or Azar, who is the Chief Medical Officer responsible for all 6 Andromeda Council hospital ships, from whichever person, from whomever I've learned different information, there's been in excess of 50 or 60, and I actually have a couple of written lists where I've chronicled these different, and I call them confirmations, where I've been taught something, and during the course of doing this Tolec work, whether it's 3 months later, or 2 weeks later, 5 months later, or 1 week later, somebody else has said something, either once, twice, or 3 times, that confirms some of the same information I had already learned, either weeks or months before. And it's happened over and over and over and over again. And that's the best answer that I can give. I honestly don't have anything to prove. What I am doing is sharing what I've learned, so that hopefully people on Earth can understand that we are part of a greater collection of intelligent life throughout the cosmos. We're truly not alone. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Mark Kimmel. Now, Mark, whereas I have communication with this governmental body that's called the Andromeda Council, Mark's soul is actually from the Andromeda Galaxy. The origination of my soul happens to be from the planet Dakote in the Taygeta star system, which is actually in the Pleiades. So people would go down a list and go, oh yeah, he's Pleiadian. That's my reference point. But Mark's from the Andromeda Galaxy. And he and I were talking back and forth, and he said, I learned recently from a new set of people that he was communicating with that 99% of the life in what we might call a multiverse is spirit-based in nature, is non-physical. So it's like, at minimum, it's 4D and up. It may have some kind of form, and I understand that kind of like by sixth dimension they lose form, but 4D, 5D, they all have form. But 99% of life is spiritual in nature, and a lot of these guys don't even know what we're doing, because we're kind of like the little bug that's crawling around -2 miles an hour. We move so slow they can't even track us.
Right.
And I was astounded at that information. But Mark Kimmel, Alex Collier, Simon Parks, I mean, there's been a number of these people where we start to talk the first time and the second time, and each of us are revealing what we've been taught, and we're finding these synchronicities and many times exact matches. The wording may be a little bit different, but a lot of our information is consistent, and that gives me some for lack of better words, counsel. It helped me to feel good and understand that I'm not working in a void, that the information that I'm getting from my Andromeda Council people is just theirs. It seems to be universal and cosmic in nature.
Right.
That's the best answer I can give. I really don't have another answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
great, and that kind of confirmation is, I mean, I get that myself, and it's fantastic for my own personal surety of my stance, my own personal surety
it's almost like validation.
Right, personal validation.
Yeah.
And that's if I were in your shoes, I'd be talking to those guys and say, "Hey, come on, let's do something. Let's put on a show that will open more people's eyes. Give what we're saying more weight in the community, within the world.
I wouldn't use that word, but I understand the impression you're trying to make.
Right.
When I'm sure that the two of you are both aware that this planet and the solar system right now are in a time of transition. There are a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometime in the near future of this planet, as well as the other bodies of this solar system are going to be going through their next evolutionary step. We are going to become a higher dimensional world with higher dimensional life. And prior to that moment of change, I'm not sure if it's going to be weeks or months, but the people from Dakote, Tolec, Tolec, and Ventra are all going. They are aligned Andromeda Council member planets. They are humanoid, so they kind of look human. They may be taller or a little shorter, and they may have different hair color. One of them, actually, I think it's, I don't have my paperwork in front of me, but, one of the four races, instead of having what the Andorians call pink skin, they are sort of green-skinned, and light green skinned, and they have what people follow in the fictional Star Trek universe of Spock's people, Vulcans.
Orions. Oh, Vulcans.
Vulcans, yeah, they look like Vulcans with light green skin. They have the little bobbed, the bobcat ears. They have the little bobbed ears. But these are humanoid people that are part of the Andromeda Council, and they will come and visit and help explain what's going on with our transition. They will be helping in a variety of ways, and they're going to stick around for 10 to 12 years after the transformation. So that the kind of physical evidence that you're looking for will be available at the appropriate moment.
Right.
And that will be just prior to the transformation of this planet. And
well, I've also heard a lot about the hands-off kind of the prime directive that's out there, where it's, at this point in humanity's development, they've deemed that it would do more harm than good to have that irrefutable proof. The landing on the White House lawn type thing would do more damage than good at this point in our development.
As a matter of
collective.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
As a collective.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that. One of them is, I think that and my feeling also is that if we extracted what we collectively call, and even the good ones, but if we extracted the powers that be the management of the different countries and all of these governmental bodies, and you just had a bunch of people either in one country or a couple of rooms and said, hey, here's some cousins of yours that come from another galaxy. And they look a little different, but, well, geez, Ahmed, you're kind of like light coffee colored, and, Sadib down in Egypt, you're a little bit darker, and Sandef down in Nigeria, you're really dark. Well, you're all different. You folks over in Europe and in America, you're like really pink and white colored. By the way, there's more variety on this planet than almost any of the other 3D organic planets. This planet was set up as a repository of life. Wendell Stevens once said to me when we were having a conversation, and it's a long story, but the short version is, he said, I'm not so sure that this planet was supposed to have humanoids living on it, trashing it the way that we do, because there are a lot of people that don't respect this planet, even on a moment-by-moment basis.
Right.
And this planet is a repository. He said, if you just look at the variety and the genus of insects and little teeny lizards and reptilians and then the varieties of animals and fish. He said, it's protozoa. It's off the charts, the kind of diversity that we have on this world. And what happens is it was set up as a repository of life, and that's one of the reasons why people from, even organic people, even if they're long-lived, but organic people, humans, humanoids from different star systems have been coming to this planet to collect life forms because they have perished or they've gone out of existence on their own worlds. I forgot how we learned this information, but the sequoias and the great redwoods, they are definitively not from this world. They were brought here and planted here. Look at the size of those trees compared to any other tree.
Well, did you know the banana was, there's evidence that the banana was genetically engineered thousands of years ago. As actually, banana is supposed to be the perfect food. You can completely exist on nothing but bananas.
Amazing amount of minerals, vitamins.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I understand grapes were not native to this planet. They were brought here.
No, somebody liked their wine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's been just an amazing. Now I'm not the historian that Alex Collier is, my predecessor, in terms of communication with the Andromeda Council. He's a real historian on how life on Earth came about and the different the different eras and epochs of time and who was in power and all that stuff. Yeah, my knowledge is much more contemporary about who we are, what we're made of, where we are today, where we're going, and what the possibilities are.
Well, speaking about where we are today, we've got so much going on this planet right now, and not just the consciousness and spirituality movement that's happening on the planet. Just collectively as a third-dimensional society, there is so much going on. And I know it's all, as above, so below thing, that there's so much going on behind the scenes also on other dimensions and in other levels that's reflected and being reflected by both directions, right? We're reflecting off of each other the turmoil and the changes that are happening.
But apparently, this process that we are going through, this, if you will, seemingly slow, it may feel faster today, but in the grand scope of things, as we look at the epochs of life on Earth, it would seem to be a long process. This planet, other planets, star systems, they all have an evolutionary blueprint based on mathematics and sacred geometry. That's the easiest way for me to say it. And it is unique that a planet with its life forms, this is the first time that a planet with its life forms is taking this transitional and transformational process to go from being organic to becoming higher dimensional life. Apparently it's the first time it's been done. It's being done this way. And we're not alone. There are two other three-dimensional worlds similar to Earth that have one or two races that are going through the same process. It's far less complicated because they only have one or two races on each planet.
I can imagine.
They've not been messed with by the reptilians. Their cultures are more cohesive and consistent. We're sort of like the game in town that everybody is watching because we are so complicated and complex because of all of these different cultures and societies on this one little blue ball.
Right.
We have.
It's the one thing that's concerned me is the string pullers. Who really is pulling the strings here? We've got there's been so much, especially since the 30s, World War II started up, and we started becoming much more mobile on the planet, creating things like the atom bomb. Since our technology started taking off and we started having so much more activity from our brothers out there, that God, where was I going with that, Jake? God damn it!
Oops, you had a senior moment, Tom.
Oh, I did. Yes, I did.
Funny.
Give me my cane, would you, young man? God.
Where'd you put your teeth?
Okay.
Well, what's interesting is that if we had been left to our own devices, in this case I'll use the word organic in terms of evolution, or just normal evolutionary growth, and I learned this about a year ago. If we had been left to our own natural, organic, evolutionary process in terms of development, technology-wise, we would be at about where we were in 1975. I learned that last year in 2015. We would only be at about 1975 technology-wise.
Okay, I got my question back.
I knew it would come back. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. Okay, and this kind of points towards the whole Eisenhower stuff and the communications that happened there, and the I look at the stuff what the Nazis were doing. The Bell, the technology they were tapping into, the obvious reverse engineering that was going on. There seemed to be some communication with off-worlders that was happening during those periods, and and that was the beginning, and I think it evolved into, I sense it evolved into a much more complex and integral role in our development and the way things have actually unfolded here as a society, and the different obstacles that are now in our way have been instigated and initiated by off-worlders primarily. And I'm just curious where we are today as far as that aspect is, and am I even on target with any of this?
Yeah, sure. I think where, and I don't know for sure, so what I'll try to do is extrapolate what I think you're trying to say. I think you're trying to say that there's an imbalance in the world, and that imbalance may in fact be due to instigation, interruption, tampering. Now, keep in mind, so I'm my soul and my spirit essence that's down here on planet. I was originally birthed over on the planet Dakote in the Taygeta star system, and I've been here many times. I'm living this Earth life, and so as an Earth human, and as somebody who's at least achieved a considerable level of literal spiritual awareness and knowledge, and who's somebody who's also achieved a considerable amount of emotional evolution, I would consider myself to be an emotionally mature man. There's an imbalance because, and most people may not realize this, but there's an imbalance in society today because our access to technology, which we didn't develop naturally through our own evolution, is essentially 40 years ahead of where we're supposed to be. And especially younger people, they are continually distracted by and are not engaged in one-to-one or one-to-two or one-to-three engagement with their peers, right, other than looking at these electronic devices, whether they're right, called iPads or iPods or whatever else. And I'm not against technology. I mean, I use a computer to build websites. It's one right, of the ways I generate money. This is how I'm having this conversation, using a computer across the web. That's not it. It's the fact that there's less literal, spiritual, and emotional interaction between this younger generation than ever before. And to say that they're disenfranchised would be an understatement. They don't feel like they're part of the process. They feel like they've been cheated. They're angry. We're pissed off for a lot of other reasons, but they're angry because they feel like they're getting a raw deal because everybody's had it better than we have. And most of them don't care.
Right.
They don't care. So what does all of that mean? Well, that means that we've got this global society. Some people are emotionally and spiritually awake, aware, if you will, advanced in terms of their knowledge and their learning. Many people are at maybe, I'm going to use a school analogy, 7th grade, 9th grade, 11th grade at best. And there are just a lot of people that don't care. You know, they go to college, they get the best job, they get married, they get their mortgage, they get their 2.5 kids. That's their whole lives. There's a large percentage of the population that doesn't think in terms of emotional maturity connected with spiritual maturity. They get riled when their taxes go up. They get riled when the cost of food goes up. They get riled when they feel cheated. I mean, those are typical reactions. But there's what I've learned is, where's all this going? I don't know if I've answered your question, but what I've learned is that plus or minus 5, maybe 7%, 50% of the people on this planet will choose not to become higher dimensional humans. And they're going to leave. They're simply going to leave. They're going to leave through what we call death, the death of the physical, organic human body. And they're going to find another planet to incarnate and have an easier 3D life and an easier 3D existence. And they're going to live a few lifetimes as a 3D person until they get to the point where they're like, I'm ready for something new.
Right. They won't make it through this transition.
No.
I agree with you 100% on that. Question I was asking was about the string pullers. I mean, granted, we know that they've had an influence on our technological development. Are they still in play? Is there, and who?
Yes, they are.
What races are they? I mean, the reptilian is thrown out there a lot.
Yeah. The reptilians have been on this planet for thousands of years. They've used technologies they've used sonic and electric technologies to emotionally aggravate people. And the sum and short version of the story of this explanation is, if you think, they've been manipulating humans for years, but it goes back thousands of years. If they manipulate humans to be angry or prideful or mean or cantankerous or confused, whatever reasons that cause war, the actions that the reptilians are taking are self-serving, because when they get people in these negative states, and the masters that are on this planet right now will tell you they're predominantly two expressions of life, if you will, a T-chart. On the left side is love, on the left side is fear, on the right side is love.
Right.
And without giving a dissertation here, they feed the reptilians in their current natural fourth dimensional form. They feed on negative energy. So the more wars and the more killing they can create, the more they can feed and get their kicks off of the vibratory rate of negative energy. How does this tie into your statement? Well, they're probably, give or take 3 or 4, they're probably all have about 120, 125 at most reptilians left on this planet, and roughly 70 of them are pure reptilians. They're deep underground. We'll never see them. The remaining ones are hybrids. I had this information confirmed by Simon Parks just about a month ago. They are the ones who are giving the orders from the top down. And their lieutenants are what we call the powers that be, the powers that were, the people that operate in the dark, in the shadows, pulling the strings.
Right.
Here's a summary. When the moment of the higher dimensional transformational shift of this world happens, those people who exist at that lower vibratory rate of hate, violence, fear, murder, rape, killing, etc., those people who vibrate at that rate, they will not tolerate the shift, the higher dimensional shift. And so what you're seeing is a last-ditch effort by those few reptilians that are still here and by the people that follow them to take as many people with them as possible. We're going to create as much killing and as much perpetual fear as possible. And that's why we are seeing, if you go back to, and we've had this conversation a few times with other people like me, but we've looked at this topic. If you go back to what was 1990 or 91, Columbine, Colorado,
right?
The children that were killed there. Who's done it? Why was it done? And especially if you look at all the incidences of events like this, including just the past year and a half to 2 years, and the number is 15, 17, 20 of these kinds of instances, it's no mistake that these are happening. When they do happen and people are killed, are they tragic? Absolutely. Now, what I'm asking people to do is step back and say, why? Why are these instances happening with the kind of frequency that they're happening right now? It has nothing to do with terrorism. It has nothing to do with the people in the Mideast and terrorism. It's about a game plan that the remaining few that are in power, that are fighting over the vacuum in power because of the loss of reptilians that have been long, they're like, however long we're here, we're going to take as many as we can, and we're going to keep getting as much of our food that we want and we need as possible. So aggravate, create conditions for aggravation, maiming, killing, the more the better, and the more people are in fear, the more we can control them. And I'm not a conspiracy guy at all. All I've done is stepped back quite a few steps, and I spent basically a weekend, and I just started doing research over the web, and I went, all right, Columbine, I just started to count. It's off the charts. We're kind of like in the same age. We didn't have these experiences when we were kids growing up. We had wars, but we didn't have these experiences where there were events that were triggered specifically to keep re-injecting fear into the populace.
Yeah. So were these events fated to happen, or?
No, they're created. They're created. They have, and the military has guys that work in what's called secret ops, psyops, where they are given a set of instructions, a code word. They don't do anything for years, and then one day, if you will, I'm speaking metaphorically, could be real, the phone rings, they get an email, and it's time to go to work. Trigger, right? Yeah.
So because we talk about fate and destiny and these type of things, would an event like this, would this go against somebody's a supposed victims? Would it go against their soul contract if they didn't sign up for it? Or is there on one level did all parties choose to be in this play?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a solid answer for that question.
Okay.
I really don't. But I can tell you that these kind of events are not natural. They are not natural in the course of a naturally developing, organically developing society. They are created. And they are created to perpetuate fear. And the more fear that's generated, the more they can control the populace.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, we see all these events, just what just happened, 2 weeks ago. It's, for me, I don't trust anything that I hear or that I read on the news or in newspapers. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I definitely think it was an orchestrated event, just like all the rest of them. They're somehow orchestrated, just for that one purpose, is to keep us in a perpetual state of fear.
Keep any of those people who, and there are a whole bunch of them that turn on their TV every morning. They have to watch the news before they go to work.
Oh,
they
yeah.
turn on the TV at night after they come home, and they're infused and propagandized with killing and fear and commercials. And where I'm staying temporarily right now, I have cable television. So when I'll watch the Sci-Fi Channel, because that's my area of interest. But even on the Sci-Fi Channel,
commercials.
I'm blown away by. So, do you have pancreatic, or do you? I cannot believe if you listen to the drug manufacturers. It'd be like 90
people into being sick.
Yeah, that's right. It'd be like 90% of society is sick. At least 90%. We're all sick. You're all sick. You all need drugs. And it's in fact the drugs that are creating the problems in people.
Yeah.
Because all drugs, all synthetically created drugs, have cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the most challenging drug I have taken is ibuprofen after 2 or 3 long hours on a tennis court. I'm like, oh man, my knees hurt. But I don't. And I've just, it's, I'm starting to sound like my parents' generation. This is not the world we grew up in at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I got another one, a little off topic of this here, but speaking on space, right? So we talked earlier about these higher dimensional beings. They're, for them to travel here, there is no real, there's no space time for them to cross. It doesn't take them, 6 months to get here or whatever. They're just kind of here. And so what I'm kind of curious on, let's take, Pleiades star system, for example, right? When we here on Earth are looking at the Pleiades star system, and we say it's however many, light years away, say it's 10 light years away. We're looking at that star system from a third dimensional point of view. So 3D, we're so far away, not only, physically, but, consciously, we're so far away from, the playing field that they're on. If they're in the 5D, we're in the 3D. It looks so far away. So if we raise our consciousness, if we raise our vibration, would that actually appear to become closer to us?
Wow. That's not a rhetorical question. I don't know the answer. I do know that my own contacts have told me, and other people, you are no less than we are at all. You are evolving. You have your own evolutionary path. You of planet Earth. We have our own evolutionary path. But we are all we're all part of the same. We're all part of the same creation. We're all part of the same consciousness.
Right.
Yeah.
We are. We just.
Yeah. That's just is.
Yeah. We're more connected because we've got. We being the higher dimensional folks, because they have telepathic capability, and it's easier for them to travel, to communicate with their friends, because there's no limitation of distance when you're talking a higher dimensional person and telepathy at all.
Yeah.
Distance has, as I've learned as I've talked to them, because they're what I would measure to be millions of miles away. So in the higher dimensions, when you live and when you live your life as a higher dimensional person, I guess the best thing I can say about your question is distance is not relative at all. It's a non-player completely.
Yeah. So
perception
is in the eye of the beholder too.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've has kind of came to me here recently, is that if I was you just said earlier with the swimming pool, right? There, it's kind of like looking through a swimming pool for them, right? So if they were on planet Dakote, and they existed in the third dimensional in a third dimensional reality, and they were looking back to our star, would that distance be the same distance, or is it just about the higher in dimension you go, space and time don't really matter anymore. So we might perceive the Pleiades star system to be 10 light years away, but in all actuality right here when we're ready to.
Well, and again, based on my own experience of traveling back in time. So instead of traveling to another place, we basically left Earth and arrived back on Earth. But how do we do it? He uses his controls, and he dials in whatever figures he needs, and he folds space. So he goes, Earth, 1993. Earth, 1840 something. Yeah. Enter.
Yeah.
He could have easily said, Earth, 1993, planet Dakote, 2010. For them, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. The distance doesn't matter, and the time doesn't matter. He just goes, dials it in.
Spooky action at a distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely.
So I got one more question for you before we get to the other questions. You talked earlier about an entity named Tonka that was on the council.
Yes.
Is this the same Tonka that the Native Americans have songs about?
Well, you're close. The word, the Lakota, and actually I'll tell a little bit of history here. The people that are considered to be Native Americans in the U.S., the Lakota with an L, Dakota with a D, the Nakota, the Comanche, the Cherokee, the Apache, a number of Western and certainly the Southwestern Native Americans and other people, but certainly that collective bunch, and there's 40, 50, 60 different, if you will, nations.
Yeah.
They are all direct descendants, great-grandchildren of my people from planet Dakote. If you flew to planet Dakote and went to visit these people, they'd all look like Native Americans. Very similar. That's the look. That's these are the gene pool. And so, to answer your question, as the Lakota or Dakota talk about Wakandanka, the two words essentially mean great spirit. They kind of translate into great mystery, great unknown. So, Ambassador Tonka is known as Ambassador Great. If you do a literal translation, you'd say Ambassador Great. He has a name back on the planet Dakote, which I'm not going to reveal. But that's his work persona name, Ambassador Tonka. And he is from the planet Dakote, a representative of the Andromeda Council, responsible for planet Earth. And this gentleman, Maka, that I know, his responsibility is for all of North America, Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. He's as a group, those are the people he's responsible to. And there are other people, there are other, if you will, diplomats that are from the Andromeda Council who are responsible for, I think there's another 7 of them that are responsible for different areas of the globe. It's their jurisdiction.
What's your ethnicity?
I'm pretty much French-Irish. This body is if you look at me, mostly French.
Right.
I would look like somebody who you'd see from France. Dark hair. There's some gray in there, but dark hair.
Right.
Relatively fast metabolism. I metabolize almost anything that I eat pretty quick.
Yeah.
Even in this latter stage of life. It's a French Mediterranean body.
I think that property in itself is, at least for quite a few people that I'm aware of, is one of the byproducts of your conscious evolution. I mean, I've watched people evolve consciously and spiritually and watch their metabolism raise at the same time.
I wouldn't have thought about it that way, but maybe, yeah.
Yeah, no.
All I know is I've always been this way. I'm not the physical specimen that I was at my prime, which would have been like 36, 38, 40. But I'm still I was 51, 52 pounds in high school. I'm still 151 or 152 pounds.
Right.
It hasn't changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm active. I take walks. When I was in Arizona, I used to hike in the hills a lot. I have a bunch of buddies. I play tennis a couple times a week. Got a mountain bike I ride. So,
Right.
whenever I have free time, I'm out in nature, just kind of enjoying it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go into some of the questions. We've got, looks like we got five questions to field from listeners who wrote in, and we're going to start with Max. Max says, Tolec, when is the 4D shift going to happen?
Here's the short version of the answer. It's not a when. It's not a when. It is defined, and I learned that it has more properties than my first version of what I learned would trigger the transformational shift, the higher dimensional shift of this world. My first version is different than the version that I've learned today because, fortunately, I evolve. And as I evolve, I ask more questions. And as I ask more questions, get more answers, and the picture, the image, if you will, gets more full. And so what I've learned is the transformational shift of this world will be triggered by the following attributes, what we call Earth changes on this planet. Whether they are the peak of drought, the peak of high water, whether you call them major waves or tsunamis, the peak of earthquakes, when the peak of all possible Earth changes happen in this era of change that we're in, combined with the peak of 3D organic human, if you will, awake and awareness, that we become as spiritually awake and mature as a global society as we will ever be, at the peak of all of the cosmic events that are triggering changes down here. It's kind of like a sine wave.
Right.
We're moving toward the top of a mountain of a sine wave. At the top of that sine wave, at the peak of that sine wave, when all of these confluence of events happen, at the very peak, that's when the transformational shift will happen. And it's actually a little more fascinating than this. I mean, that's when it'll happen. It's at the peak. But from what I understand, and this is relatively new information also, this is being orchestrated, which I didn't realize until recently. This is being orchestrated by, I don't really have a grasp on this, but, like ninth dimensional beings, 11th dimensional beings that sort of manage the process of evolution across the cosmos in all its forms and dimensions. They're doing their thing.
James Gilliland's talking about 11-dimensional beings that have been contacting, so...
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a new dimension to... Sorry.
Yeah.
That's a new aspect to how this shift will happen and what aspects are coming together to make it happen, including the fact that it is at some high level orchestrated by beings that are far more advanced than we are.
Right.
No judgment here, they just are.
Right.
They're just more advanced than we are. So it's not a when, it's a what, which is the what being confluence of events at a particular peak. And again, think of a sine wave. At the very top of the mountain, that's when the shift will happen. Next.
There you go, Max. All right, this one comes from Ben. Ben asks, Tolec, when will first contact be made? When will the Earth shift its axis? And when will we start to see Tacoma, the brown dwarf system?
It's already in place. It is somewhere in and around Venus in terms of Tacoma. It is shielded. In terms of when will people have first contact, as I mentioned earlier, in the weeks, and probably you're going to see, 3 months, 4 months or more, in the period of time, leading up to the transformational shift, these people from Ventra, Toleka, Dakote, Ritol will be coming down to Earth in physical form, flying down in ships. They will be parking their ships quietly, out in the rural forest areas, and they won't be meeting with people in Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, Boston. They're going to be meeting people in smaller second-tier and third-tier towns and cities, quietly. quietly.
Right.
So,
Well, thousands of people right now, I mean, daily thousands of people are having their own experiences with contact. And so, I mean, it's just a wildfire going out there right now as people are raising their own personal consciousness and spirituality. They're raising their own vibration to a point where they're able to initiate the contact.
Yes, that's right. And it actually can only happen when each person gets to a particular level of emotional and spiritual awareness. When their contact people recognize that this Earth person is ready, that's when the contact happens. But the question came from you guys. The question came from a man asking about when will we experience contact with Andromeda Council contact people?
Right.
That was my answer.
Right.
So I got just to kind of piggyback on that. What's the purpose of this brown dwarf system, and is there a significance in the name Tacoma? Why it's being called Tacoma?
Yeah, it does have a Native American name, but interestingly enough, that particular brown dwarf star has with it a small planet. And honestly, at this moment in time, I forget the name of the planet. However, the value to this conversation is that the people on that planet are if you will, the great grandparents of the people that today live in the countries called India and Pakistan. They are their direct relatives, and they will be part of. It is there. They are here to experience. They basically brought their star system, their mini star system, into our star system, so that they could experience the higher dimensional shift. They want to participate in this. They want to experience it.
Come on in. The water's fine.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
And
they're the relatives.
Quite right. One more part of Ben's question there was when will the Earth shift its axis?
I'm hesitating because that is a mixed question. Is somebody asking about the magnetic polar shift, or are they talking about the crust of the Earth and its current position? Those are two different items.
Oh, I thought they were talking about the actual axis. We're spinning at a 23-degree axis now.
Right. Yeah, it's my understanding that of the many things that are going to happen prior to the shift, and again, this is not date-based, it's based on events happening, that the 23.5 off-axis of the Earth's crust will be corrected. As a matter of fact, it's my understanding that the Earth's crust is going to move. If you think of the current position of Earth as like 12 o'clock is straight up, 6 o'clock is down, it's going to move from 12 o'clock. The crust will move from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So the what we consider to be North, Central, and South America are going to do a 15-minute or a 45-degree shift from north to east, if you will. Things are going to change.
Yeah, that would be a big one.
Yeah. That's going to change, and also the magnetic poles are going to shift as well. That's actually happening right now. Magnetic poles are happening right now. Scientists have documented that, so that one's it's progressive. Yeah. Next question.
Richard asks, when this so-called transformational shift happens, will all the underground cities, bunkers, etc., and all the life forms within the Earth transform too?
Okay, now I understand the question. Except for those people and beings whose lower vibrational frequency won't be able to tolerate the higher density, higher dimensional vibratory rate. Except for those people, everybody on planet Earth, whether they're animals or reptiles or
living on the surface or living on the inside.
No, the whole planet.
Yes.
The whole planet is going to go through a higher dimensional transformational shift. Now, there will be, I understand that some races of beings, like maybe tigers or lions, that thrive off of living on meat that they kill, and others may likely not make the shift on this world, and they'll incarnate somewhere else.
Right.
So we may have some species that just may choose to migrate off world and carry out their three-dimensional lives somewhere else.
What about like fourth and fifth dimensional beings that are living on the planet? What do they shift automatically, or are they just there watching the shift? 4-3. Is this a 3D primarily shift, or does it shift in 4, 5, and 6D also?
Yeah, my understanding is that whoever is at whatever rate, they're going to bump. They're going to bump up.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, essentially what will happen is when the transformation happens, if you were to stand there and look at your fingers and your hands and your arms and everything else, you would actually be able to see them turn into like White Johnson's baby powder, and zero pain, no pain at all, nothing. You would just watch this process whereby your fingers turn into white baby powder, and then your arms turn into white baby powder, and your higher dimensional body would express itself. You would go from being like an average guy is 5'10" or 5'11", he would start to become 7'2", 7'4", 7'8". It's the transformation is going to take place right in front of your eyes.
Right. What about okay, so if is it a localized event, or is this like a solar system event, or is it a galaxy event, or a universe event, or
it is certainly a solar system event, but it is also an event that is taking place within certain sectors of the Milky Way galaxy, because, as I mentioned, there are people from other worlds who Earth people will be traveling with.
Right.
And they're going to go to another 3D, a virgin 3D Earth-like world. It's like the size of Jupiter, but their
events are happening in synchronous to ours.
Right.
So.
That's right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
As a metaphor, maybe theirs is going to happen at 8:45, and ours is going to happen at 9:20. As an expression, maybe that.
So if Earth is all primed and ready, and we're at all our peaks, and we're ready to transform, and one of these other planets is lagging behind, do we have to wait?
No, we're not. Our experience is not predicated on other planets. Our experience is predicated on for lack of better words, the big guys upstairs, the 11D guys, as they are doing whatever they do, however they
the conductors orchestrating the orchestra.
Orchestrating, right.
Right.
As we get to, I'm going to be redundant, but here we go, as we get to that place where all of the events, all of the possibilities of our greatest potential as 3D Earth humans, that we peak at the top of that sine wave, that's the moment that will shift and become higher dimensional humans. It's based on us, on this planet and on this planet. When she says, I've had enough, I got to deliver this baby.
Right.
Y'all get it? I'm pregnant. This baby's coming out. And in this case, she's going to deliver herself as a higher dimensional world.
Right.
And that's what. There's actually more magma moving under planet Earth now than ever before in our history. We're going to see more earthquakes triggered by volcanoes popping off.
Yeah.
These are labor pains.
She definitely has been rocking and rolling here this last few years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so we have, oh God, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Vipul, or... Hi, Tolec. Love and greetings from India. I check your website often for updates and interviews. Thank you for providing us very important information. My question: 1, do you believe we are on the right track for those earthly and cosmic events to happen, maybe in our lifetime, which will result in frequency and consciousness shift to happen? Your website shows 2017 to be a possible timeline, so I'm hopeful.
Okay. If he's fixated on this timeline or focused on this timeline, based on everything that I've learned to date, I think it's reasonable to think that it's going to happen in our lifetime. Will it happen in 2017? I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's a good probability.
Right.
But as I, peppered that statement with all sorts of disclaimers.
All right. Well, there's a lot of people have pointed at the 2017 through 2020 time period.
Yeah, and
that's some really significant and positive changes for us.
Right. I think the greater question is when he asks that question, I just kind of smiled. I'm like, well, which we is he talking about? If he's for the sake of the question, is he assuming those of us who are awake and aware and want this consciousness shift to happen, that want this transformational shift of this world? It really doesn't matter which we is asking the question, honestly, because it is the evolutionary destiny of this planet to evolve. It has an evolutionary blueprint, and quite honestly and quite sincerely, I really think that we're going to see it happen within the context of our lifetime.
Right.
Whether it's 5 years, 7 years, 10, 12, I don't know.
Right.
Again, reference the sine wave of the peak. When the peak of all of these things happen, that's when it'll happen. And my understanding is I'll be on planet helping these people from Tolec, Dakote, and Retol as they travel around the world and
right.
meet people and explain what's going on. And they've got some other plans for me up in the Andromeda Council biosphere after about 10 or 12 years worth of work. So
right.
I'm going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the second part is Vipul's question. God, I hope I'm saying that right. I don't think I am. But anyways, says, I have always been in service to others, the service to others kind of person. Always do the right things kind of guy. But often I get depressed and despair, irritation, boredom creeps in without invitation. I do not blame circumstances or people, neither it feels right to blame self. How do you think it will affect a person like me during this shift? Does my depression lower my vibration? And maybe I won't shift. I'm not afraid of anything, but I need to understand how this works. So,
really cogent question. I have so many questions for him in terms of, why do you get depressed? Are you doing things in your life that are meaningful and have value for you? Are you depressed because you live in an area of India and you find no way out? Is the caste system so fixed that you find no way out? I just have a whole boatload of questions. Why do you feel the way that you do? In terms of the piece of the question that's relative to his concern about I think he's asking, will I become a higher dimensional person?
Right. He wants to know if he'll make the shift.
Right. My understanding is that anybody like him who's basically a good person, he tries to live his life the best way that he can. He's kind to others. He does things for people. He enjoys his family and friends, etc., etc. Those people, if they want to stay on planet and if they want to become fourth dimensional humans, they will. There's no, it's like there's no threshold that's been defined that says you have to reach this kind of peak. It's not like that at all. It's basically, are you a good person or are you somebody who, thrives off of others? Do you take advantage of others? Do you lie? Do you cheat? Do you steal? Do you kill? Do you maim? Do you rape? Those folks ain't going to make it.
Right.
And that's simply because their vibratory rate is such that it won't tolerate the higher frequency shift. But anybody else like this gentleman, they'll make it.
Yeah. And, you know, I think there's people need to also understand that, you know, even if you were that person, you know, at some point in your life you've done those things, but now you know better and you're doing better. Then you can forgive yourself.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
And,
you're talking about somebody who's made a change and has made conscious choices to be a different person. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Vipul, I think my intuition kind of slapped me upside the head here and said, "Don't worry, man. If you're asking this question, you're going to make it with no problems, bud."
Yeah, that would be my short answer. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, last question, Nicholas Tolec. A while back, you talked about two topics. One, the two huge L-shaped craft that had parked behind the moon. They were here to help, were to become a part of mentoring, or were to help and were to become a part of mentoring us to be part of our transition.
Right.
Okay, you kind of...
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. Also, what became of Xantarix and the two huge Procyon accompanying craft? Thank you, Tolec. So the L-shaped craft and
the L-shaped craft. There are, for example, not counting Andromeda Council aligned member races, not counting. There are like 500 plus, both organic
which
well
L-shaped craft.
well, that's why I'm making the statement. But I know what he's talking about. There are at least 500 both 3D organic as well as higher dimensional races that have they popped through the sun. They're independent. They're non-aligned. That are watching, what I think one actor called the greatest show the greatest show of the century. This process of Earth, becoming alive, becoming more sentient than it's ever been, and it's the people of Earth becoming more sentient than they've ever been. About to transform.
Right.
It's like this is the greatest. People that have tickets for this show, this is the best thing going on because it's never happened before this way. So there are a lot of races watching us. The people in the L-shaped craft, they're part of the Andromeda Council. There's some kind of affiliation, so they're simply waiting for their marching orders. They're again, they 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years, no biggie.
Right.
And for us, we're going, oh man, I can't wait till Friday gets here.
Right.
The scope of how we measure time as compared to what they're dealing with. You can't. There's no comparison at all. So, if, as an example, if somebody said, okay, the shift is going to happen on, by the way, I'm throwing this out here as a what-if scenario. The shift is going to happen on March 17th, 2017. Well, if the shift happens on May 29th, 2022, like 5 years later, for the people in higher dimensions, that's like, I think I'm going to get a glass of water.
Yeah, right on time.
Yeah, so I tell these stories as metaphors so people understand. Dudes, relax, man. Just relax because it's not on your schedule. Oh, Tolec, I want to see this world change. There's so many people that are freaking out. Live your lives. Do what you're meant to do. Find ways to become as happy as you can become, however that's defined for you, and let everything else fall into place the way it's going to. Because whether you do something about your life or not, this shift is going to happen.
Right.
So don't think about the shift. Think about how do you want your life to look like on Wednesday morning when you wake up? How do you want your life to look like on Thursday morning when you wake up? That's what people should be thinking about. And I'm sorry to be a little, hard about this subject, but don't look out to when is everything going to happen. Look at, I'm talking to anybody who's listening, look to your lives and figure out what kind of changes can you make in your life so that your life is easier, so that it's better, so that it feels better, so that you bring the kind of people into your life that you want to, so that you spend the kind of time that you want to with the people that you care about. Those are the things you ought to be thinking about. Not how can I make it? Can I make it until the shift comes?
Right.
That's not the way to live.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. Other part of his question there, what became of Xantarex and the two huge Procyon accompanying craft? Oh, is that so far back as like what? I forget.
Yeah, it's that, and they may be mixing that question with another topic. I think they're talking about the planetoid that was supposed to create one of the major Earth changes, and essentially, planetoid asteroid, it was flying through space and it got bumped by another piece of rock. Not everything is planned destiny. So this thing gets bumped and it doesn't have a trajectory towards Earth, and all of a sudden you have a different timeline. And that's something that people ought to understand, that timelines change. Now, right now what's going on is timelines are converging.
Right.
Timelines are definitely converging.
Yeah.
So that encompasses the process of what we experience as time is going away also, because the closer we get to becoming a fourth dimensional race, the more that what we call time just kind of zips by.
Right.
It's hard to grasp it.
Right. Either that or we're getting older.
On this planet, yeah, both.
Yeah. Oh man.
Other questions?
I want to thank all of you guys for sending in those questions. Good stuff. Sparked some great conversation.
And since a lot of, and I'll jump in here, since a lot of the questions were about the transformational shift of this world, and actually, folks, it's not only this world, but that question that was asked earlier, this shift, because the fact that this solar system is moving through an area of space, and I'm going to diverge just for a moment and tell a small story. I think it was the first time around back in 1997. So relatively speaking, the information is relatively recent. There's a group of Russian scientists from the Russian National Academy led by Dmitriev, somebody or other. And they basically said magnetism, the luminosity, the frequency rate, and a couple other things are all raising on all of these planets, not just Earth. They talked about Neptune. They talked about Mars losing its solar caps. It's polar, with a P. It's polar caps. They talked about the frequency of storms on Jupiter and Saturn, but they listed a number of aspects of change that are indicative of something special going on that is raising the vibrational frequency and is raising the temperature of, and is creating more storms, and is raising the luminosity and the magnetism of all the planets in the solar system.
Yeah.
1997, that report came out. And now I've learned that the Andromeda Council biospheres first arrived here somewhere in the early 90s. So they showed up at a time when we were starting to enter that area of space where you have a higher frequency, a higher rate, higher magnetics.
Right.
Now, having said all of that, again, since a lot of the questions were oriented toward the transformational shift of this planet, I'm now going to do a plug for a conference that I've been working nights and days since the end of April. It's called the 2016 Transformational Shift Conference. And it's going to take place in Tucson, Arizona on the weekend of October the 21st through the 23rd. And I'm going to ask and tell anybody listening, if you live in the U.S. or Canada or Mexico, anywhere in the world, please come to this conference. There will be a Native American feel to it in that there will be a gentleman by the name of Mickey Free. Mickey is part Comanche and part Cherokee. He's a Grammy Award winner and 5-time Native American Music Award winner. He will be playing the flute on Friday evening after the official opening ceremonies. Now, there are going to be people speaking during the day on Friday. Friday evening also, in terms of the official ceremonies, there's a woman who's probably the foremost Native American. She is part Lakota, part Cherokee, and 2 other nations. Her name is Grandmother Silverstar. And she's one of the 2 co-creators of the Star Knowledge Conference with Chief Golden Eagle. She'll be our Native American keynote speaker. She's going to be officially opening ceremonies for this conference on Friday night. Mark Kimmel's going to be the keynote speaker on Saturday. We just have some amazing people. We've got 16 speakers over 3 days, and I think unlike some other conferences, we're going to do one thing different. Instead of waiting to the end of the conference and you give people like an hour and a half for an interactive question and answer session, we're going to have almost 2 hours worth of question and answer sessions on Saturday and a 2-hour session on Sunday of 4 to 5 people in a speaker group sitting there in comfortable chairs. I'm going to be doing the introductions, which will take maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then they're going to be wireless mics handed to the people in the audience so they can have like an hour and 3/4 of questions of these speakers in these speaker groups. I wanted to create a format so that people could have far more and far greater interaction with the speakers at these conferences, because usually they're set up so that you can hear the speaker speak for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then you got to pay more money to go to a workshop. Not so. We're going to have a number of individual speakers at the podium, and then we're also going to have these 2 speaker groups at different time slots on Saturday and Sunday, and it's all part of the conference. And so, therefore, people will get better access, will get greater interaction between themselves as attendees and the speakers. And like I said, Grandmother Silverstar, Mark Kimmel, Simon Parks, we're going to have him come in via Skype, big screen TV. Itasha Tashina, she is actually there are physicians. She's got a couple of reports that indicate that 80% of her DNA is off planet. There are no references for any of the DNA databases on this planet to 80% of her physical body. Her people have told her she's Arcturian. She's also part Apache. Michael Lloyd Brown from Sedona will be there. Jim Nichols, Kathy Wilcuts, who is responsible for a program. She's from the Cheyenne River, Lakota people. It's going to be a really, really neat conference because the people who are, if you will, star people from the different nations, the native nations, they have a unique take on what's going on.
Right.
So, Stuart Swerdlow, man with amazing experiences, had government experience as a kid, has had his own contact. It's just going to be a unique conference. I'm excited about it because I'm organizing it, but I'm also excited about it because of the kinds of people that will be there speaking. The conference website is www.transformationalshift-and-events.html, or just transformationalshiftevents.com, and you can go see the rest of the website. And you can buy tickets online, PayPal, your credit cards, debit cards, whatever.
Is this going to be available online also?
It's online. Wait, ask the question differently.
Is it going to be viewable online, the live conference?
Live stream?
No, we're not gonna live stream it, and neither am I. I've made a conscious decision not to do something else that a lot of these conferences do, which is we're going to record live 3D, live DVD sets, so that before you leave the conference, you can buy your. I'm not doing that.
Right.
This conference, it's costing me money to produce this conference, and yes, it will produce some money, but I'm holding this conference so that people can. It's not a virtual conference. It's not meant to be virtual. I want people to come to this. Tucson's an amazing place in the Sonora Desert. In October in Tucson, it's somewhere between 82 and 84 dry, very comfortable degrees. Sunny blue skies, a few puffy white clouds. It's just a gorgeous time of year. But I want people to come to Tucson and engage with all of these speakers. I want them to have access to these speakers, and I want people to be able to talk to these speakers and get questions answered. I'll be speaking and presenting as well, alongside with I call her my adopted sister, but on planet Earth her name is Donna. Back on Dakote, she's actually my sister. So she and I are going to do a presentation about the people from the planet Dakote.
Nice.
So it's going to be a really neat conference, Friday through Sunday, the 21st to the 23rd, and I priced it so that it's not the cheapest in the world, and it's not the most expensive. I just kind of priced it right in the middle so it's affordable for people.
Nice. Yeah.
And for whoever would like to go, I would love to see you there.
Nice. You got anything else coming up this summer?
Yeah, thank you for asking. The month of August, I'm going to be speaking in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, for a day. I will be speaking on Saturday, August the 20th. I'll be there for essentially half the day speaking, and there'll be another gentleman that'll be speaking. And interestingly enough, the woman who's producing that event, her name is Lindsay Sutton. Her website is luminositytalks.com. And she's retained a local Native American to play Native American flute for that event as well.
Nice.
So, it'll have a nice touch to it. And let's see, Pagosa Springs, Colorado in August. 7,500 feet, maybe 74, 76 degrees. Beautiful, very comfortable.
Yeah.
Great place to be. So that'll be a nice one-day event for me.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So thanks for asking. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, wow, it's been a great conversation. It's fantastic to finally talk to you, Tolec. I mean, I've seen you out there on the world stage for a few years now, and some really interesting material. And I would urge everybody to pop over to your website. And would you share that with us real quick?
Sure. It's www.Andromeda, ANDROMEDA, Council. In this case, Council is COUNCIL.com.
All right.
And if people want to write to me, they can write to me using their YouTube channel, and they would send a message to Tolec, Tolec, from Dakote, D as in David, AKOTE.
All right. Well, we'll drop a link for the conference there in Tucson.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. For your website on the info tab underneath this show that you guys are listening to right now. Yeah.
And if you guys in Washington State would like to come to some comfortable 82, 84 degree weather and experience all of these speakers, come on down. It's going to be a special event. It really will.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you, Tolec, so much for joining us, and everybody out there listening. And I think our next show we're going to do a review, right?
Yeah.
We're going to go back through. We haven't done a review show for a couple of months now, so we'll be doing a review, and that'll be after we get back from ECETI, so we'll be able to share some of the stuff that we've done there, and we plan on getting some video while we're down there, so look for that also.
Well, have a great time. Say hi to James for me. He's a good man.
We'll definitely do that, Tolec.
And thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you in the next show. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
Namaste, my friends.